With the Switch reaching the end of its lifespan, we wanted to do a series which basically covered the best games for each year and hopefully also unlock a few hidden gems that we've forgotten about. This was your idea, Glenn.
Yeah. So the basic idea, well, Mark's just said it really, is that we look back over the course of the Switch's life, so going all the way back to 2017, and look at the best games score-wise as per Metacritic for each year, but then we'll add some at the end that we feel deserve a mention that weren't high enough to be in that top 10.
Lovely. As always, if you want to save yourself some money and pick any of these up, use our website, switchup.gg. You'll get 5% in cashback. All right, what were the best games of 2017 then? Well, let's find out. We are going to start with the lowest Metacritic score. So in 10th position then, we have Axiom Verge, which scored 87%.
Yeah, so this is a Metroidvania with a pixel art style, kind of a retro art style. You play as a scientist, I seem to remember, that's landed on a planet, and obviously you need to explore. Very good Metroidvania, this. Really enjoyed this one. I played this one through to completion, probably around this time actually. And I would say that, yeah, 87 obviously is an average. There or thereabouts, I would agree with that.
Yeah, it had like an unusual kind of, whatever the opposite of covert story about like time hopping and dimensions and things like that. I played the sequel through to completion and it was just too on the nose. Like, it was just too obvious. It's like, okay. So for me personally, I think the first is better.
Yeah, I never played the sequel, but I very much enjoyed the first. There was a lot of like cryptic messages and decoding ancient civilizations, transcripts and stuff, I seem to remember. Yeah, no, very good game. If you're looking for a Metroidvania and you've not played this one or not even heard of it, perhaps in some cases, as I say, 87 average Metacritic score, I'd say is pretty fair, yeah.
Next up then we have the glorious Enter the Gungeon, which that also scored 87% Metacritic, so an average of all the critic reviews. This is a very loved game that I think it's fair to say never fully clicked with us.
I think it was just more a case that we preferred one of its competitors at the time, which maybe we'll get a mention at the end. But this, as per Metacritic, scored higher and obviously made this top 10 list. It's a very good game.
Yeah, it is.
Don't get me wrong. I just think we preferred a certain style of another game. But in this one, you're going through quite traditional, or certainly since then has become the norm for this genre. Room to room, obviously picking up a number of different weapons, taking out enemies, finding upgrades and currency that you can then use for more skills to improve yourself as you go on these runs.
Yeah, funnily enough, it actually takes elements from a game that I reviewed yesterday, Star of Providence, where it doesn't take elements, it has similar elements, like the bullet hell nature. You know, it has that bullet hell nature. I think actually going back, we might enjoy this more than we did originally.
Quite possibly, yeah. It's very, the emphasis is very much on the weapons here, isn't it? And the spread of bullets, and you can kind of jump
flip tables,
jump behind them and duck and cover, all that sort of thing. It's a lot of fun, and again, I would say personally, it's one that's even more fun in multiplayer.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Coming in at number 8, then for this list, we have the very, very loved Stardew Valley.
Yeah, I'll be honest. As good as 87% average is, I mean, to get an average of 87 is very impressive, isn't it? Because obviously you're going to always get low scores that drag your average down. But I still expected this to be a little bit higher.
Do you know why it isn't?
Why?
Because this, a bit like Minecraft, 2017 Stardew Valley is not 2025 Stardew Valley.
Yeah.
They're very different games.
I see. Yeah.
He added in multiplayer. He added in a bunch of mechanics, and it's just a very different experience now. It would definitely be in the 90s, I think. And even, like you say, even at launch, maybe it's one of those, I don't know, maybe it's one of those polarizing genres. Some people find it maybe a bit boring.
Maybe. I mean, the thing is, as I kind of alluded to there, with an average, it only takes a couple of bad scores to plummet it down. Yeah. Not that 87 is plummeted down, but just in general, that's the problem with an average, isn't it? But this is a game that I've played a bit of. There are farm games that I subjectively prefer. Yeah. But that's not a knock on this game at all. It's a great little game, lovely, very colourful, very vibrant game. Has a lot more story behind it than perhaps some of these similar games have. Not just, a lot of them give you a basic premise and then push you into the world and you get on with it. This one keeps going with its story.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's lovely. I do love playing co-op on this one with my daughter. This is a great game. Funnily enough, when we're talking about these Metacritic scores, like we obviously we're nothing to do with Metacritic.
No, we're not, yeah.
But it's surprising how often our scores are like the same.
Yeah, we seem to line up with the average
We do.
score
Which
quite a lot.
I think is a testament to the system being good.
I think so. Yeah. We're not the extreme end.
No.
We seem to be the average a lot.
Yeah. Better than average.
Yeah, well, you know.
After Stardew, we've got Cave Story Plus.
Yeah, this is, again, this is why I like this idea of just going back and revisiting each year, because I'll be honest, I'd forgotten this game even existed.
Same.
And it's a very good game. I think it started life as like a free-to-play game or something on PC.
Yeah, did it have like a web version or something?
Something like that. It had very, humble, if you excuse the expression, origins. And it grew over time and become very popular. And I bought the physical version of this, which didn't come out over here. It was an import, a US import. And it's, again, kind of a Metroidvania, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Again, quite a simple art style, similar to Axiom Verge on those fronts. But the gameplay's very, very good.
Yeah, there's so many in the same genre that still manage to feel quite unique.
Yeah.
Despite mechanics essentially being the same.
Yeah, and again, don't forget that this came out, on the Switch at least.
2017.
So 8 years ago, and there's been a whole bunch of Metroidvanias since that perhaps dilute what these ones did so well, or at least increase the competition in terms of what's available now. But even back then, 8 years ago, and obviously, like I say, it had been out before, it was a bit of a breath of fresh air back then.
It was indeed, yeah, it was. So, following on from that, in number 6, is it? We've got SteamWorld Dig 2. Now, I've written SteamWorld Dog 2 here.
That's a different game.
Anyone who's watched the channel for like any amount of time will realise that I have a little bit of, I guess it's dyslexia. Like my brain will literally see a word and I'll be like, yeah, this is cool, we're good to go. Then I'll release the video and I'll get a message from Glen going, you do realise you've written boat simulator instead of goat. I'm like, yeah, I meant to do it, mate.
What you don't realise, that's only when I haven't got my laptop.
Yeah.
The amount of times I just fix
Oh, really?
it. Yeah.
Have you? Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate it. That's really nice. Thanks. So, SteamWorld Dog 2 is another Metroidvania.
Yeah. I mean, again, this is one I just forgot. I forgot about. But it's a great game.
Yeah.
Really good game. I played the first one. Must have been on the 3DS, maybe. I think it's on the Switch as well, though. The first one, and this one kind of went bigger and better. And it's the idea of again, a Metroidvania, but you're obviously digging downward for the most part.
Dig Dug,
yeah, the Metroidvania version. But yeah, again, very much a breath of fresh air when it came out, because it took core elements of gameplay that were fun and just tweaked them in a way that made them feel new. And this sequel, I do remember this coming out for the Switch, and I remember obviously fewer games back then at that time being quite a big deal, and a lot of people really enjoying it, and obviously this Metacritic score will reflect that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice to see the SteamWorld universe kind of expand over the years as well, right?
Yeah, and it's not even the only SteamWorld game on this list, surprisingly. No. There is another one.
Oh yeah, leans over, reads list. Impressive. All right, let's move on then to the next one above this is 5th place, and it's Shovel Knight Treasure Trove, which I remember you talking a lot about this, and I actually bought, they did one of the releases was like a standalone, and you played as like the Grim Reaper or something.
Yeah, so basically with the Shovel Knight series, you had the first game, that obviously Shovel Knight, and then each of the other knights that you fought in that first game, so the bosses basically, got their own game.
That's cool.
And when it was released, that was all done as a Kickstarter, and if you pledged or contributed, you got each of those new releases for free as part of your...
That's good, isn't it?
Yeah, and they went on for ages. The amount of free content they made, and you could buy them all as standalone games. But this Treasure Trove edition brings them all together.
Yeah. So these were classic action platformers, right?
Yeah.
Side perspective.
2D, pixel art style. I like the phrase for these. I don't know who coined the term, but they feel like kind of 12-bit games. They're not quite 8-bit. They're not 16-bit. They're like a souped-up 8-bit. That wouldn't have been possible back then.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, and they kind of fit, fall in between there somewhere. And they're very good games. Have elements of things like Mega Man in them, perhaps from back in the day. Very, very difficult, but I will say they do always feel fair. I am the sort of person that can get frustrated with difficulty. if I keep dying on the same bit.
What, you?
Yeah, sometimes.
It's my surprise face.
I don't. I don't shout about it, but quite literally. But even with these games where I was dying a lot, and you have to go back and you collect your currency again, a la Dark Souls, you know, from the point you died at, I never felt cheated by them. I felt like, you know, I'll keep going, I'll keep trying. Love these games. I'm delighted to see this so high up in this list, because it deserves another mention. Great games.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, I think it's a huge component of a good game, and what gets a game a good review score is fairness.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I would say that, I don't know if we've done best platformer lists in the last couple of years, and we haven't mentioned this, we've done this game a massive disservice.
Yeah.
Should have been on there.
That's not fair. Jumping up to number 4 then, for the highest score. This surprised me, I have to say. It's SteamWorld Heist.
Yeah, and obviously being the other SteamWorld game that we alluded to a moment ago, 91% average score for this game. It released, I've just checked, on the 28th of December 2017.
Right.
So just made
snuck in.
Yeah, just snuck in at the last. I've not played this one much. I think I had it on the Wii U, and either I had it, bought it cheap and just played a bit of it, or a mate had it and showed it to me, I forget. But it's a tactical shooter this time round, isn't it?
Yeah, again, same as you, I haven't played a huge amount of this. I thought you'd reviewed this, but maybe not.
No, I reviewed one of there was like a card-based one.
Okay.
And I forget the name of it now, I must say. And there is a sequel to this one, the SteamWorld Heist 2.
Yes.
Which I think came out relatively recently.
It did. Yeah, it did, and didn't get much fanfare, did it?
It just didn't get a lot of coverage, did it, by that point?
Oh, yeah, it wasn't you that reviewed this. So this was back in the SwitchWatch days.
Oh, okay.
When they used to do reviews, and I remember their review of this one.
Right.
And also, do you remember a guy called the Flannel Fox?
Vaguely, yeah, no, I do, yeah.
He was great.
Yeah,
like he was really good, but he was only around for a little while and kind of sacked it off.
Yeah.
He would have been massive by now, I reckon.
Yeah, I do remember.
Like,
so he covered it too, yeah.
Yeah, he did a review as well.
Nice. I mean, this is the Ultimate Edition that you get on the Switch, and it's got the Outsider DLC and other bits and bobs, I think, come with it as well. About 20 hours worth of game time, if you are interested and haven't played it since its release. But yeah, not one we could say a huge amount on, to be perfectly honest.
No, I think that's fair. Okay, coming in third place then, we have the very, very not very well known Mario Kart.
Yeah, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, wasn't it, on the Switch, or isn't it, I should say. Yeah, I mean, it's a great game. It's a very good game. Mario Kart is always good for a laugh, and always good for one of those games again. If you've got people round, it's just an icebreaker, isn't it? Doesn't matter your skill level, really. Those blue shells will see to that.
Oh, they will see to that. Do you know what I loved? I really liked that the physical car that you could get with the track. Josh is using that all the time at the moment.
Yes, I know the one you mean.
Yeah, he builds his own tracks and stuff.
Right. And it kind of looks, it detects the track.
It's very clever.
It's very clever.
Very like a Christmas present thing as well. Like that's quality.
Absolutely.
But the game itself, I think it's because I'm so used to it, it's almost difficult to see it. How good it is.
Yeah, I've gone back to it recently because my daughter got quite into it.
Nice.
And have played it with kind of almost like a fresh mindset.
Yeah.
And it is so good.
It is.
You know, not that that's new information, but as you say, you just get used to it and almost blasé about things, don't you?
Yeah, you really do. You really do. So basically, this one got 92%, which I think is pretty fair. How do you feel about the sequel being out on the Switch 2 at launch?
I think it's a strange choice for a launch game. I don't know why.
Why is that?
Yeah, I don't know, to be honest. I mean, it's in some ways it makes perfect sense. It's a party game, you know, to some extent. Big name. You know, this one's sold huge amounts over the Switch's life, so it does make perfect sense. I just always associate launch games with a platform or action game of some description.
Yeah, like a first-party Mario or something like that.
Yeah, like that. But you know, it will sell very, very well.
The hottest of cakes.
Absolutely right. So yeah, no, it's from a business perspective, it does make good sense.
I think it alludes to release time. I think they're obviously targeting that Christmas this time around, whereas the first Switch was obviously March, wasn't it?
It came out in
March. This time I think it's going to be that side, you know, and people will be buying those party games, but also the single player one. I think they're going to absolutely crush it.
They're going to smash it, yeah. This will sell fantastically well, like I say. And they do actually do Mario Kart Lego sets now.
Do they?
Yeah, they do. That's crazy. They've just released them in January, and they're very good.
Nice.
They're very good. Nice little sets. I've reviewed a couple on
I've
the
seen.
channel. if you want to give those a watch. But no,
is there a link to that channel?
I'm sure I can find one somewhere and stick
down
it
in the description
up in the top right hand corner.
Oh, everywhere.
But no, they're lovely little sets, and this is obviously a great game.
What are you decorating your walls with? I've just my channel wallpaper. Oh, okay. Right. In number 2 then, we've got Mario Odyssey at 97%.
Yeah.
Now, when I first played this, I wouldn't have agreed with that.
No, I've played it through to completion. I still don't quite agree with that. Not that high, but it's still a great game, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a classic 3D Mario game with regard to obviously the different worlds that you visit and having small objectives that grant you that game's not currency as such, but you know the thing you need to move on. The moons in this case, of course. My biggest problem was and still is the frequency of those moons. You know, you sometimes you gain them without realizing you're going to gain them. I liked the more concise, for want of a better word, way that Mario 64 handled it, where you had X amount per level and you revisited that level a few times. Here you'll kind of just keep going through the level and find a bunch of them. Maybe this is a better way of doing it and I'm just stuck in the past, I don't know.
No, you're not. I've gone back and played 64 since. It's a better way of doing it. Less is more.
Yeah.
In something like that, because we live in a world as well with games and game quantity and phones where you're just bombarded, and it felt like being bombarded with options. It's too many. Having you like, right, I'm going for one each time I go into the stage, or 3 or whatever it was, just made more sense.
Yeah, it was because you went back into the level in 64 so much. It made the same level feel different because you got a different objective. It was a bit obscure in terms of what it was telling you to do. You had to work it out for yourself. So you explored other parts of the level that you didn't need to on that first go. Whereas here you'll kind of walk along, you'll weave through, say, like 8 pillars, and a moon will appear, and you'll collect it. It'll say, oh, the 8 pillars of so-and-so land. Whereas in the first game, or that 64, doing that would have earned you an extra life, for example. Yeah,
and it felt like a moment rather than just an occasion.
Like, oh, another one. Yeah, okay, brilliant, I've got another one. But we're being very negative on what's a very good game. The platforming, the pure platforming is fantastic. The level design is great. The Cappy, the introduction of that mechanic where you overtook other items or enemies and what have you, and used that to get across certain parts of levels, was very clever. Yeah, I wouldn't agree with 97 personally, but I do think it's a very, very good game.
Yeah, it would be 90-something, I reckon, for me.
Yeah.
And it did have a weird little co-op mechanic where you could kind of do all the legwork and your kid controlled the cap.
Yeah.
So it did have that in there as well. So that then takes us on to number 1, and I think everyone their nans know what it is already.
Yep.
Breath of the Wild.
Breath of the Wild, which was of course a launch game.
It was indeed. And that's also 97%.
It got 97 as well, which I'm also surprised by. I would have thought that was far and away clear at top in terms of its Metacritic score, but it isn't. It shares it with Odyssey. I'm more inclined to agree with this than Odyssey.
100%.
In terms of 97. I actually appreciate this game more now because its sequel's come out.
Yeah.
Strangely enough, I think the sequel made me realise that some of the faults I saw in this game, the sequel trying to rectify them, perhaps they weren't actually faults and should have been left alone, if that makes sense,
It makes perfect sense, yeah. So Breath of the Wild just had so many iconic moments, which is not easy to create these days. There are so many games out that, like the moment where you leave the cave at the start and you can see Hyrule kind of pans out over that hill.
Yeah.
I'd say that image is one of the most iconic images in gaming now.
Yeah, for sure.
It's an amazing thing to say.
Absolutely.
This late in the day.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I mean, we'd had games like this by this point. Even things like Assassin's Creed, kind of fall into the same category, don't they? Exploring and finding the height of each place. Albeit here you don't unlock anything by doing that. But this just felt more natural. It just felt like you were naturally exploring as opposed to arbitrarily exploring.
Yeah, so the main difference between everything that had come before and this, and not every game, but a lot of them, is this really felt like a gamer had created it and thought with your game, like with your brain. When you're sat there, you're like, I wonder if I can, and the answer is always yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And in this game, because the objectives were so. I mean, the objective from the start of the game was defeat Ganon,
and you could walk right there.
And you could walk right there if you wanted, but then you were just left alone. And there were obviously the little shrines and whatnot. But other than that, it was just go and have a...
Peaceful, wasn't it?
Yeah, have a look around and see what you think. And I'll go back to Assassin's Creed. It might not be the best example, but just there, obviously it's more complete objective, get a new one, get a new one, get a new one, you know, advance the story. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it did make exploration feel like a secondary objective.
Yeah, and funnily enough, the later Assassin's Creed games then tried to emulate the Breath of the Wild formula and kind of lost their core.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So it's best to just do your own thing, isn't it?
I think so. But this is a great game. What a launch game.
Yeah. Ludicrous. But funnily enough, not a launch game. It was a Wii U game, isn't it?
It was a Wii U game that they then obviously kind of delayed and released.
Do you think they were like, flip, this is good actually?
I think they exactly that. Yeah, I think they made a game that was too good for the console it was on.
I think so.
And it's not a knock against the Wii U. I love the Wii U, but in terms of Nintendo's objective of getting as much money, obviously at the end of the day, as you can for that game, it wasn't going to sell Wii U's at that point, no matter how good it was. So it was definitely the right decision to bring it across.
Yeah, it really was. And Nintendo will always win the argument of power versus game.
Yeah.
You know, system power versus what you can produce. They make some crazy things.
They do.
Xenoblade X, I was watching a video, because I haven't played it. I was watching a video, and there's no load times in the whole map. You can just like fly out, and like the system it was made on had like a peanut for a CPU. Makes no sense.
Yeah, no, it is crazy, and it makes other games, first-party games that do have some performance issues, it's disappointing for that reason.
Very true.
You know, because you know what they can do.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this was, to no one's surprise, I'm sure, the highest-rated game as per Metacritic of 2017.
Lovely stuff. All right, let's do a couple of honourable mentions then, shall we?
Yes. Okay, do you want to start?
I do, once I found my list. My honourable mention would be Thimbleweed Park. You actually mentioned this one. I think it got a Metacritic score of 82%, but I'd forgotten, again, that it existed.
Yeah.
And for me, this was the biggest return to a genre I love that I didn't expect to then do well.
Being the point and click.
Being the point and click, classic style, Guybrush Threepwood art pack. Like, it looks like it's come straight out of the late 80s, early 90s, and I loved it. It was great.
Yeah, I'm not as big a point and click fan as you, nowhere near, but what intrigued me about this was it had that kind of X-Files, Mulder and Scully feeling to it, didn't it, in terms of its characters? Yeah,
quality. It had the arbitrary weird clown that you meet in a fair. What is it about these games and having like a circus that you go to?
Yeah.
It's all very odd.
Yeah.
Brilliant game. So yeah, 82%, that's one honourable mention.
Nice. My first one, Metacritic wise, only scored 78, and that's Blaster Master Zero. I think that's way too low for this game.
Yeah.
This game's brilliant. So again, Metroidvania-esque, I guess, based on an old game from the NES, Blaster Master, which was developed by Sunsoft. This time round, it was Inti Creates that made it. And they've kind of just gone bigger and better with that initial idea, that initial game. The original game is very good, by the way, but this was a great way of updating an older game to dust off some of the rough edges, you know, polish it up, add new content. This is brilliant. You know, if you want a relatively short Metroidvania type game, you know, action exploration game where you play as a young boy that chases after his lost frog and then ends up finding a tank. It's crazy. But the gameplay is brilliant. And I would have been scoring this much, much higher. I would have been one of those higher reviews of this 78 average.
Yeah, nice. I was thinking about putting something like Skyrim or Rocket League or even Binding of Isaac in here, but actually they're all out on other platforms, you know, at the time. I'm going to go with Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which, was it out on another platform? I don't think it was it?
No, it wasn't.
No, that was 82% on Metacritic, which, that's actually 83%, which I think is a bit under maybe what I would have given it. But I haven't finished it, so I can't give it a score.
Yeah.
But I do think it needs to be on this list.
Yeah, very good game. And one that they announced was going to get a December release of that year, and everyone was very sceptical. They were like, nah, no chance. And it did. It got that release. Binding of Isaac being the one I mentioned earlier that we would have rated higher than Enter the Gungeon.
Yes.
Personally, but scored lower as per its average. The one I'm going to mention then is Splatoon 2, which was just outside of the top 10. I think it got 84 on average, something like that. It's one again that I'd kind of forgotten about, not in terms of knowing it existed, but in terms of playing it myself.
Yeah.
But if I think back to 2017, the amount of time we put into this, it deserves a mention.
It was quality, wasn't it, online?
It was so much fun. We used to meet up on a Friday night, as we still do to this day. But for a while, this was the game that we played. Going into the turf wars and whatnot, and the other mode they added, what was it called? Salmon Run.
Yeah.
Something like that, wasn't it? a lot of time into that.
Salmon Run was quality.
It was
you could
very
only
good.
play it on like a Tuesday afternoon or something.
Yeah, what was that about? They limited when you were allowed to play it. Stupid idea. But obviously the third one's come out since. I've not played the third one at all. Maybe I should. But this
It's
second
exactly
one,
the same.
same thing again, yeah. But this second one, at that time, back in 2017, yeah, I love this game.
All right, so that's the end of the 2017 generational best, the best Switch games of each year. Let us know in the comments what yours were. Did we miss a couple that you feel like really need a mention? And I think that's quite a nice idea, that.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, as we move on through the years, where our channel is more established and we've reviewed some of these games, we can add more insight into the score side of it. 2017, the channel was still growing, and I don't think we reviewed any of these games at all. No. So this is a very unique episode in what will hopefully be a new series.
But we did review Her Majesty's Spiffing.
We did, yeah.
That was our first ever review.
First review.
Yeah, go and if you want to laugh, go and listen to our voices in that.
Yeah,
hello, this is Mark.
Yeah, that'll be worth a laugh. I'll stick a card to that in the top corner as well. Don't forget, if you're looking for eShop credits to pick any games up, you can use our website, switchup.gg, and doing so will get you 5% of your purchase price back as cash back. There are other links down there to places such as Play Asia, and again, using links and codes will save you some money. Thank you to our patrons and our channel members for your continued support, and to each and every one of you for watching our videos. Take care, and until next time, happy gaming.